I will go. There we go. We'll be sitting tight for just a few minutes while we get more folks in. You know, we did have some additional people registered, so we'll give people a minute to get in the meeting and connected to audio. Hi, folks. If you're just getting joined in, I'm Karen Young with the Solano Resource Conservation District. We're sitting tight for a few minutes to let more folks join. In the meantime, just so you know, when we come in on Zoom, we're all muted. You can go ahead and leave it that way. If you've got a question, there's the chat box, or you can raise your hand. And please let me know if you have any questions in the meantime. We'll get started in just a minute. All right. We are at 6:02 by my clock. So we can go ahead and get started. Hi, folks. My name is Karen Young. I'm with Solano Resource Conservation District. I'll be doing a lot of the Zoom management this evening, so I might be popping in and out. But thank you for joining us at the Solano Fire Safe Council meeting. I'm going to turn it over to Chris Rose, Executive Director of the Solano Resource Conservation District. He will be getting us started this evening. Go ahead, Chris.
All right. Hey, thank you, everyone, for choosing to spend your Monday evening with each other, talking about doing something that's very important. I think sometimes we forget that these meetings or these things have an importance, but we are all meeting and spending our time together to start a Solano Fire Safe Council that will be making decisions and will set kind of the table for people, all of us partners, making decisions for a long time to increase our improve our fire resiliency and reduce our chance of and damage of catastrophic wildfire. It's that and so much more on so many different levels. And I'm excited for the opportunity to be all working with you in this way with different groups in different places. In this meeting, it's going to be really important that we dig in and put on our thinking caps as far as having the opportunity to really construct what the Fire Safe Council looks like and how we interact in the future. So anyway, thanks again for all coming and for taking part in this endeavor. So well, just a quick look at our agenda here. We're going to be focusing on work and things that we did and going over what we did last time, which is mission and purpose statements review. That's going to be led by Dawn Ryan of Solano County Office of Emergency Services. And then we're going to be talking about going into breakout rooms to be getting into the nitty gritty on membership of the Fire Safe Council and voting rights and breakout rooms. That's going to be led by Tracy Kettleman of Forever Green Forestry. And then Nancy Nelson from Solano County Administrator's Office is going to lead us in an activity where people are from the county that are active in wildfire activities are going to give updates on activities. And then Karen Young of Solano RCD is going to give a grants update. And then we're going to have Q&A and then close it out. So I just saw that Rochelle Sherlock introduced herself in the chat. And I think that's a great, thank you, Rochelle, for doing that. So if those of you want to introduce yourselves, just introduce yourselves in the chat. That'd be great. Okay, so more Zoom housekeeping. Questions will be addressed in the Q&A. You can type questions into the chat box at any time. During Q&A, click raise hand if you want to speak. Please remain muted the whole time as to show respect to the other folks that are on the session. There's closed captioning you can activate by clicking the arrow to the right. And if you need assistance, there are folks that know more about all this than I do, and one of them is Elizabeth Davis, and you could do a shout out to her in chat. If for some reason you can't get to where you need to go. We'll also be concluding, I don't know if we had on there, we're going to do a quick poll on how everyone feels about continuing on in a virtual way, or doing it in person, or doing hybrid, that sort of thing. So we'll prompt you and when that comes up at the end. Okay.
All right, I'm going to bring up Don Ryan.
All right. Good evening, everybody. I hope I'm not, I might see a little or hear a little echo here, but we'll just start with mission and purpose. So there was one word I would change on this slide, and I'd call it draft versions of the mission and purpose statements. I think that's the one thing that our whole group has agreed upon. I think that's done. I want to put that in stone, that we've actually accomplished this. So next slide, please. So we've given everyone, including the groups last time, the opportunity to look at the draft mission and purpose statements. And this is what we came up with as a final rendition. I won't go through all of them, but basically what we're doing, our job or purpose of this group is to not only prevent fires, but also if we do have a fire, reduce the severity of the damages and aid in the recovery and response to these fires. And we'll also obviously want to help our fire districts and any fire agencies in their planning and mitigation of the fire risk in Solano County. I'll talk about education here in a second when we get to the next slide, please. So how are we going to do this? Obviously, planning in advance of a fire is very important. We have the multi-hazard mitigation plan for Solano County. We have a CWPP, a community wildfire protection plan. The first meeting with all the cities and county representatives will be on Thursday this week at noon. And that meeting is scheduled for about 2 hours. It's one of 3 major meetings with all the players. And so that is moving along nicely with a lot of data being exchanged between the county and the vendor that's putting this all together. And when I talked about education, we're also engaging people in the community. We just hired a new emergency services coordinator here in Solano County OES. Her name is Jenny Novell. She comes from UC San Francisco, where she was the emergency manager out there and was specializing in Everbridge, or the service that we use to maintain Alert Solano. So she's quite experienced, and we're looking forward to her to get fully trained up and then out with the community. And I'll start introducing her to all these groups as we get her up to speed. And obviously, this whole plan, we're going to give the community the ability to look at it and comment on it. That includes the CWPP and all these efforts for the Fire Safe Council. And we'll continue using the grants process to fund any of the projects in the CWPP. So for the grants portion of it right now, Solano County is still working with this project right here with the Resource Conservation District, purchasing radios for the fire districts and a bunch of other things with the money that we got with recent grants, and then also money from Senator Dodd's office. So all this is progressing even behind the scenes as we build these bylaws. And I'm really looking forward to getting the bylaws done so we can move on, field a board of, I guess, what are we calling the board member? Board members or board supervisors that can go ahead and lead us through this process and get the community really engaged in fire safe councils. So the last one, next slide, you have the mission up there. So the mission is the most simple, or the simplest part of this whole process. And it basically says what I just said in a very long review of our purpose and mission. But the important thing is communication. We hired someone for that, specifically in Solano County OES. We plan on collaborating with everybody in the community and then also educating them on a better way to prepare for a fire and mitigate that in their own properties. So with that, Karen, I'll open up the questions, or I'll let you decide what we're going to do.
We are going to head over to Tracy Cattleman for membership and voting rights.
Great. Thanks, Karen. Hi, everybody. My name is Tracy Cattleman. I'm going to talk to you about our membership and voting rights discussion and process up to now and what we're going to do tonight in the breakout rooms. So as Don mentioned, and if you were here at the last meeting, you know, we've had this coordinating committee that's made up of local fire safe councils, the county, especially OES and the CAO's office and the RCD, looking at how we structure this new Fire Safe Council. And so that's where we came up with that draft that we shared with y'all last time that, as Don mentioned, it's not a draft anymore for the purpose and mission statement. So that is pretty done through this process. Tonight, we want to talk to you about the conversations we've been having around membership and voting rights. And we started, like we did with a lot of the rest of their kind of bylaws, for lack of a better word, is look at what Yolo County's been doing next door. And in Yolo, they decided to call their representatives, their members, organizations, entities, and groups, that it's representing a collective of people, not individuals, and that they have both voting and non-voting members. And if you've participated in any of the Yolo Fire Safe Council meetings, you'll know that pretty much anybody who's in the call on the meeting is participating, whether they're voting or non-voting. But the importance of having voting members is when decisions have to be made, such as what grants to apply for, what projects, what approving the bylaws, what this membership structure is, that kind of thing. So that's why we're putting it out here for you tonight, is we want your input on that. The important thing to know is that if you're a member, that we do have some expectations of you, and first and foremost that you attend, and especially these monthly meetings, and hopefully participate in between and in all the work that's going to be happening through the Fire Safe Council to create a more fire adapted Solano County. And of course, that you uphold the mission and the purpose of the Solano Fire Safe Council that Don just shared with us. And so we're going to need to figure out what the mechanism is to apply for membership, both for new groups, or both for groups that we're identifying right now, but also either groups that are newly created or new to this process later on. So with that, I think we go on to the next slide. And let me get my notes here. So drafting the membership list and who all do we want to invite to be part of this process and be under the big tent. And one thing I think about in work around fire and fire safety and fire adaptation is that it's a really complex problem. I think most of you on this call understand that. And it takes a lot of different skills to build that fire adaptation at any level, especially at a county level. So we want to be thinking about who are the people that you want to be part of the solution to the fire problem, for lack of a better word, in Solano County, that you want to be part of this process, that you want to be able to count on and say, hey, can you help? Oh, you know, this group would have great resources or knows how to do X, Y, or Z. Whether that's people that you're already working with or who you sometimes think, wow, it would be great to have their expertise in addressing these complex issues. So we brainstormed, and again, this is the coordinating committee that's been meeting every week for a few months. We brainstormed this initial list, and what we're going to do tonight is review that all. We want to hear from you what you think of this list. So I'm going to read through this list so everybody hears who's on it so far, and then talk a little bit about our process tonight. So Bureau of Reclamation, CAL FIRE, Caltrans, some combination of city public works, open space parks, potentially between all the cities in a rotating seat, Community Alliance of Family Farmers, Community Animal Response Team, also known as CART, the fire department chiefs who represent the cities, the fire protection district chiefs, so those are generally outside of the cities, our local fire safe councils, you're going to hear from the two of them tonight, potentially neighboring countywide fire safe councils like Napa Firewise and the Yolo County Fire Safe Council, any nonprofit conservation groups, resource conservation districts, the County Office of Emergency Services, the County Office of Resource Management, the Solano Land Trust, Travis Air Force Base, the University of California Cooperative Extension, the U.S. Forest Service, who many of you know, probably their regional offices right here in Solano County, volunteer organizations active in disasters, or the VOAD, and the Yochadihi Nation. So again, this is our initial list of folks that we brainstormed. And what we're going to do is break them up. And I think is this on our next slide, Karen? Basically, what we want to do tonight is, go ahead and go back. I'm not quite there yet. What we want to do tonight is hear from you. Is that list comprehensive? Are there people on here maybe that you don't even think should be on here, but more, who else is missing from the list? And then if we set up a structure of voting and non-voting, where would you put folks? Would you put them in the voting or the non-voting? And so what we're going to do, now we'll go to the next slide, is we're going to go into our breakout rooms. And I believe we have 5 breakout rooms, and Elizabeth's going to get that set up. If you don't automatically get put into a breakout room, just hang tight and you can reach out to Elizabeth and she'll get you set up in one, or send her a chat telling her that you're waiting. And in each of those breakout rooms, we're going to have that list, and we'll have 15 minutes, maybe more, because we're actually ahead of schedule, to review that list in your group. So who are we missing? Assign people to voting and non-voting. In the breakout rooms, one of the first things we'll be doing is asking for someone to report back. So if you're comfortable with that, please volunteer to do that. Then we'll come back to the main room probably before 6:40, since we're just cruising on time tonight. And hear back from all those different groups, all the different breakout rooms. And then we'll move on to the agenda. But what happens then after tonight is that we'll take all of your notes and all your feedback, and that will go back to the coordinating committee to review and move forward in terms of proposal for how we address membership in the bylaws and as this group's process. So I think with that, Karen, are we ready to move into breakouts?
Rochelle's got her hand up first.
Oh, Rochelle, please.
Yes, Tracy, would you give the group an example of the kinds of decisions that might come forward to the group? Because I think that will also help set a little bit of the context.
For voting and non-voting?
Yes.
Yeah, so I think mainly the issues are, okay, and Karen's going to talk about this later tonight. CAL FIRE, fire prevention grants are going to be opening up this winter. Do we, as the Solano County Fire Safe Council, want to put forward one or more proposals? And if so, what are those? So that would be a great example of what a group vote would be about. Once we get through this bylaw process a little more, or as we're creating this draft, then we'll need to approve those bylaws. And so that group would approve that, or potentially if there's some change to those bylaws. Those are kind of the main ones. They're chair and co-chair, perhaps, voting on who those people are. I think those are some of the main issues. And then if something contentious comes up, it doesn't happen often, but it's if there is some contentious issue in the future, then sometimes things need to go to a vote. And we'll outline that whole process of voting as well in the bylaws. So that answer your question? Okay, great. So with that, are we ready to move into breakouts, Karen?
I
Yes.
believe so. Elizabeth's going to move us into breakout rooms.
And Elizabeth, you've got us all set. So
Yes.
everybody just hold tight. You'll be moved into a breakout room, and we've got facilitators there that will be ready to guide you through this process. So thanks.
So if you're still here and you haven't hit the join button, you should click the join button. I see Ethel and Jeff are still here. There's a join button you guys should be able to see on your screen. If you can't see it, go ahead and message me, or you can unmute yourselves and talk with me, and I can help you navigate.
the main ones. Oh, okay, thank you.
Sorry.
Yeah, no, one of the main parts of this is who actually is a voting member and who's on the advisory committee. The idea is, as of right now, is that the meetings like this one, obviously, this is the Fire Safe Council meeting, will be open to everyone. And then there'll be advisory members, and there'll be actually actual voting members. And the idea of this is to actually go through and help select who you thought would be the most appropriate to be the actual voting members and who would be the non-voting members. Now, there's a million ways to do this, right? And it depends on what your focus is. And I don't want to give away too much, other than well, I'm not going to give away anything. I've just decided I'm not going to give away anything, but trying to pick that group that has the most, deals with fire, deals with safety, is dealing with the major issues, to be on that voting group would be actually the one thing I'd give away. And there's going to be a lot of other support folks. And this may evolve over time. And when you look through all the fire safe councils, there's over 150 fire safe councils, and actual county fire safe councils. Obviously there's less, but there's lots, there's dozens. They're all doing it in different ways, and how the members are on. Like YOLO to the north of us is doing it in a certain way, and we're kind of leaning a similar way, but it'll be different too. So without any further ado, I think that what we and this is just my recommendation, that basically we just go through this list and you start naming who you think would be the voting members, basically those ones making those final decisions, taking input from the whole group and voting on which way we go with, as far as priorities for implementation of projects, for going for grants, for those type voting, creating officers, those types of things. So okay, so I guess one way we could do this is folks could, if they feel strongly about who should be on the voting list, you could start naming them.
Chris, could I ask you a question real quick?
Sure,
This is
go ahead.
Kelly.
Mhm.
Have you guys talked about kind of the frequency of meetings?
Yeah, so actually the frequency, I mean, that's the other thing, is that I think everyone clamors to be a voting member, and they're like, oh crap, we have to go to a whole bunch of meetings. We're thinking that these are going to be monthly initially, and they may go bi-monthly depending on need. So that's the other thing, is that the thing of this is a group, is that we're able to decide what makes the most sense as we go along. But right now we're thinking monthly meetings like this one. And again, like I said, there's going to be a poll at the end to decide to carry forth, at least for the near future, whether we're doing it virtually or in person or that sort of thing. Yep.
Thanks.
Grassland. So I think that it's it would be really valuable to have us be able to have a voice and included in the conversation about what projects get pursued, and especially also what funding is pursued. We have a successful track record of securing funding from federal, state, and private foundations. So yeah, I feel like if there's going to be a developed list of criteria for voting members, I would be able to kind of address some of the criteria more directly, but I'm kind of going off the cuff right now of how I see us fitting, and knowing that I think it's a great model to have organizations and groups be members rather than individuals, because I could see, based on the conversation that's happening with the Fire Safe Council, some meetings would be appropriate for our executive director to attend, some meetings would be appropriate for myself to attend, some meetings would be appropriate for other staff focused more on the on-the-ground operation. So I really do like that way of thinking about membership.
All right, I will go ahead and move Solano Land Trust over to the voting side. And Dennis, I saw that you put a question into the chat, which I apologize, I didn't quite catch earlier. That is it envisioned that there will be one voting member from the organizations identified and voting members. The working plan that the coordinating committee had been considering when drafting this membership list was that the entities listed here would nominate or appoint a representative to attend meetings and to
a significant percent of the group, of the county being made up of agricultural workers. So I think it's an important vote, personally.
I'm not familiar with the organization. I mean, I don't do a lot with the Farm Bureau or a lot of the other farm associations, but I've never heard anything about them myself before this meeting.
It's a new entity as far as I understand. Like, they've only been formed for about a year, but it was put together by the Red Cross to provide a voice for family farms in response to the 2020 season. So
I think that's the particular program at CAF. CAF's actually been around for a long time.
yeah, sorry, the wildfire prevention program. Yeah.
So we can also leave some of these entities with the question mark and then come back to them too. As we go through the list, we might find that it becomes a little more clear which category folks go into.
Another group comparable that has a long established base in the county is the Solano County Farm Bureau. And I think they would do a pretty good job representing the farmer side here.
My only 2 cents about this process is you may find when you ask who is interested in becoming stakeholders, it may be different from the group that you want.
Sure. Sorry.
Farm Bureau didn't want to be a member in our Fire Safe Council. I mean, I know one way or the other, they just wanted to focus on, the irrigated lands, I think, for the most part. But it may also be interesting to
a lot of it, and I wanted to make sure that everybody knows that the CWPP will be countywide. It'll include the cities as well. So I don't think Cal Fire, Caltrans, and Bureau of Reclamation should be part of the voting part of it. They can advise us, but that's about it.
Cool. Who else do you guys think out of this list you want to see to be voting members?
When you look at Dixon RCD, wouldn't it be maybe a rotating seat? It would be either Solano RCD, or if Dixon RCD wanted, they may not even want to participate actively in this, but wouldn't it be a rotating seat, or they would be a non-voting member, but not both or either? It would be like either rotating seat.
I'm not that familiar with them, and are they actually distinct? Go ahead, Elizabeth.
I can come in. I'm hopping from meeting to meeting. Yeah, speaking on that note, so we share an office with Dixon RCD, so they're actually based here too. Nothing against Dixon RCD, but based on where their district's actually further away from actually where our foothills are. So most of Pleasants Valley actually falls under Solano RCD district, which is a thing to consider. And we function differently, our purposes. So they do a lot more with agricultural ditches and movement of water. That's not to say that maybe you do want different sorts of representation from the different RCDs, but the way they function, Sassoon RCD functions, and the way Solano RCD functions is very different. Solano RCD, we move a lot more throughout the county. Some of this is just, we already have some partnerships with people and relationships with landowners that are in some of those high fire risk regions.
And for right now, how has Dixon RCD and Sassoon RCD, I mean, at this point, they haven't really had much to do with fire. I mean, what is their desire to participate in this part anyway?
So we do have a Dixon RCD representative today, and I think we may even have someone from Sassoon. But I think Chris Rose, who again, he talks a lot more with those other executive directors. There's just the option to even just have them communicate, and we just have one representative from all the RCDs, and that we're having input. So, I mean, you don't have to decide which RCD, or if you just want a representative. That's just an alternative option. I'm probably going to switch groups actually here, but there's my 2 cents.
Okay, thank you. Why don't we look at some of these other groups on here too, before we run out of time? Like especially the fire departments, the fire chiefs and the fire protection districts. What do you guys think?
Well, voting for the fire protection,
Are we okay with that person, speaking for the VOAD? But so I don't want to confuse this, but I just want to, that was a good example for the VOAD and CART, because CART is an outstanding member of the VOAD.
Right. And it might be helpful actually for, I'm not really sure that there's going to be too many really contentious decisions coming forward. But if every individual agency had a vote and then COA had a vote that represented the collective, does that in some way, is that an undue influence in some way? I mean, I don't know. I think that's kind of an interesting question to explore. Yeah. So with CART, should we say yes for a voting member or a partner? I don't even know that we even have anybody in CART attending these at this moment.
Well, I kind of thought that CART was part of the COAD, so I put them kind of in the same category. So I didn't think a separate entity should have that kind of voice.
Okay.
As far as voting.
Okay, I'm just put down here, need to sort out, the roles on the VOAD versus independently. So as a note, so with the fire department chiefs and the fire protection districts, we're talking about the city chiefs, and then we're talking about all the unincorporated fire protection districts, and they both have associations. And right now, Chief Abruzini is representing the fire protection district chiefs. When we talked about this in the pre-planning, the thought was that there would be a representative that would hold the vote. So it's not 7.
Sorry, I was muted. Hello, Ryan and Chris. I work with Solano RCD. I'm helping facilitate this meeting. If you're curious about what's going on right now, there are breakout rooms happening. We're discussing membership and voting rights. So I'm going to go ahead and assign you to a group, and you can click the join button. It might be a little hard to understand what's going on, but when we come back together as a big group, it should make more sense. If you have any questions, message me directly. Or you can speak to me here in this room.
I've also heard, just now I heard recording in progress. When I'm speaking, I'm hearing recording in progress and then recording ended. And I'm curious if these breakout groups are being recorded.
I'm hopping in and out. It's right now only being recorded on mine, and I left your group and came back.
Yeah.
And I'm fine with anything that I said being noted in the notes or recorded. I just like to know that.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I forgot to go over that at the start. All right, so we've got 2 minutes left in the we've got 2 minutes left in here. Sorry, 1 minute left now. Trying to pay attention to multiple different things. And Dennis, I just saw the comment you put in the chat. I mean, agreeing with Kelly, you need to define how many voting
or water agencies.
Right.
No.
Solano County Water Agency.
Or Solano Irrigation District.
That's one that you guys, you think should be a voting member, both of those, or just the water agency, or?
I don't know, some format of water suppliers being.
Yeah, I think as an example, Chris, that SID and North Rural Water District have a tremendous amount of assets in Solano County with regards to providing both domestic water, firefighting water.
One thing the existing fire safe councils do, both of them perform evaluations of properties comparable to what the districts and the cities do, but in a non
for profit, or if they are for profit. But that's something that we've seen in our fire safe council, is at least home improvement associations.
Okay. Yeah, so we've got, hey, Elizabeth, can you clarify on the amount of time we've got left? Is it coming back now or 5 more minutes?
I'm gonna give you another 5. Everyone's still really talking, and we have it on our agenda until 45. So
that works.
Yeah, I just have to go into the rooms to tell you guys that. So
sounds good. We'll brace for the recording to end momentarily. Yeah, HOAs, they
Oh, we got Elizabeth back, so we're recording. I think we could have both.
I think you're gonna have another 5 minutes, Tracy, just because we have it scheduled that much. So
great. Until 6:40, wasn't it?
Yeah, 6:40, 6:45, but all the other groups need more time. So you guys seem the furthest along by a long shot. So
wow.
Just remember that we need time to report back and the rest.
Yeah, we have it in our agenda until 6:45 without reporting back.
Includes report back.
Okay. I think we can put Solano Land Trust in a vote.
Say that again, Don?
I'd like to see Solano Land Trust in the voting category. They have a lot of property here and they're responsible for. The neighboring county lot, yeah, over there to the right.
Well, we were saying maybe just even be guests, right?
You could remove them altogether. Yeah, just leave them there, italics.
Yeah, can question mark be advisory?
Yeah, there you go. No, we meant up at the top.
Go ahead.
Yeah, we definitely want to know what the neighboring FSCs are up to and how we can cooperate and work with them. So they should be invited to participate.
So far, they've been our mentors and teachers.
Right.
Well, both YOLO and Napa have been awesome.
How about Community Alliance with Family Farmers?
Don't know anything about them.
They want to work with us. They definitely want to add fire to their thing. So,
and
Do they have one individual that's like the president of the Family Farmers Association? Do they have someone that can come to a meeting and do that vote, or how does that
It gave everyone a little more time than we had planned, just because those conversations seem to be taking longer.
So let's see how we doing. Do we have everybody back yet, Elizabeth? I'm thinking, I'm seeing a lot of people on here of the participants. No.
I'll report back just quickly before everyone comes back that we were like right in the middle of it. So like we probably could have used another 20 minutes.
Same here.
Another 15 minutes. So
Yeah.
just
But
because
do we have all of our groups here? So we'll start the
Sure, yeah.
Start the report backs? I think we do. So it sounds like maybe our group made a lot of progress, or so maybe we could start. And that would be Rose. I don't mean to put you on the spot, but I'm going to, and I'm going to share my screen so you guys can see. Let's see, Karen, can you stop? There we go. Oops, nope. Let me cancel that. Here we go. There we go. Okay. So, Rose, take it away, and we'll need to unmute you. There you go.
Okay. Okay, well, we had some decision makers in our group. I think that might have helped move us along a little more quickly. So, so we have a small section left in question marks after we spoke here for 15 or 20 minutes. We ended up putting our local fire safe councils, of course, in voting, and we, for the time being, gave our local fire safe councils each one vote per fire safe council. So we only, of course, have 2 fire safe councils in Solano County right now, so that gives us 2 votes. Of course, that would have to be addressed further if we suddenly found ourselves with many fire safe councils, since that would obviously alter the voting schedule as far as how many votes the fire safe councils would have. But for right now, with only 2 fire safe councils, we felt each fire safe council deserved their own vote. RCD would get a vote. We had a little discussion about Solano versus if we would alternate between the different fire safe councils, but Elizabeth did pop in just then to discuss Suisun versus Dixon Fire Safe Council. It sounds like Solano RCD is, oops, we just lost that. Okay, thank you. Solano RCD would probably be the primary one. And it sounds like Chris does interact with the executive directors of the other. So our Solano RCD would probably be the Resource Conservation District, but they would have a vote. We discussed back and forth about Solano County Water, but we decided they would have a vote. And we did have, I'm sorry, Kerry Keaton from Solano Irrigation District in our meeting, and he was kind of more towards not giving them a vote. So that was kind of an interesting discussion, as he would not have them be a voting member. The Fire Protection District, the chiefs would have one voting person rotating between the association. The cities would have one rotating between. Right at the very end, and so we didn't, or we ended before we had an opportunity to do anything there, but there was one vote per city, and then I see Tracy put a question mark there at the end, so thanks, Tracy, because I know I had that question right at the very end as well. That seemed like a lot of votes for the city all of a sudden thrown in there, but that was one discussion we had, whether each city or city public works gets a vote. That seemed like a lot. But again, we didn't have a chance to discuss that any further before we got pushed out of our breakout rooms. OES gets a vote. And then we did put VOAD as a voting member also. The land trust we put as a voting member, because they do manage quite a bit of property within the county. And then we put CAF as a voting, member? Okay, so I might have to be, I might have to have a little bit of, I'm not sure why we put CAF as a voting member. So someone will have to steer me up if someone else remembers why we ended up putting CAF as a member. Our non-voting members were CAL FIRE. They sort of vote by grant. Caltrans, Solano Irrigation District are non-voting members. I think the non-voting members are a little more obvious: Bureau of Reclamation, U.S. Forest Service, Travis, Cooperative Extension, and Solano County Resource Management. We did have a little discussion whether or not they should have a voting, a vote, but we decided all of them were to be non-voting members. PG&E was one we added as a non-voting member. Winton Nation we put as a non-voting member. None of us had any knowledge of land owned by them or managed by them within the county. So if anyone has any additional information about that, we put CART as a non-voting member. But at the top there, we also added a question mark about advisory. So we did put in italics in the center that neighboring fire safe councils, because we thought that there could also be space for advisory members, not necessarily voting versus non-voting, but maybe within our bylaws, we needed advisory members as well. And I know Visit Vacaville does this. They have an advisory board. So
thank you.
I don't, maybe some members would be that.
Thank you, Rose.
All right.
Carrie, did you have a really quick comment about that? I know you put the water agency down first as non-voting, and then it was suggested they go to voting because they have a lot of land. Go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. I just wanted to clarify. This is Kerry Keaton with SID. I just recommend that SID and Solano County Water Agency both be part of the membership, but that the Solano County Water Agency be a voting member and that SID be a non-voting member. So that was my recommendation. So I just want to clarify that. Thank you.
Thank you. And I think one other clarification is that we talked about potentially one seat for the county that would represent, it could be OES or it could be other departments, but there would be potentially one seat for the county or one seat for OES, but that was to be determined. So thank you. We're running behind time, so let's go through our other reports kind of quickly. Chris, do you want to go ahead and tell us about yours? I'm going to stop sharing.
Yeah, I will. I'll do it quickly. We kind of stopped right in the middle, so I felt I didn't elect him, and so I figured I would just do that. Ours is not that far off. Unfortunately, the RCD didn't make the cut, which was a little sad. But basically, and another good point that was brought up by Kelly Huff is that sometimes when you're doing this, you're establishing voting members, you're focusing on what kind of representation you want to have by area or field, so that you might want to focus on ag or water or land management and that sort of thing. So that was something that we hadn't thought about as much. And someone brought up right at the beginning, actually, Rhonda did, that, who would be the most impactful as far as getting grants? When you're getting grants, who do you usually have as partners? And I thought that was an interesting way of going about it. So we basically came up with a list of, oh, and you're sharing it. Okay, great. I'm glad I didn't write anything weird on there. Essentially, local fire safe councils, each one representative, fire department chiefs, fire protection, district chiefs. We discussed the idea of there being one representative so that we could have more actually people show up to the meetings. City public works, open space, parks. So a lot of our group talked about who controls land was a big part of it. Land trusts control a lot of land. City parks, open space areas control a lot of land. Travis Air Force Base was another one that controls a lot of land. So that was on there as well. Solano County Management. We put both Solano County Water Agency and Solano Irrigation District as voting members because of the impact let's say that Solano Irrigation District could have to actually establishing more water, more hydrants in areas where there aren't them. So that was the rationale there. Volunteer organization active in disasters was on the list. Non-voting, we had the discussion whether that was, it's kind of a default because all these groups made the list that they would be advisory. So you can see who's on our advisory list. Our group added PG&E and AT&T, Casey Bowers from the county added those. So that was a great idea. And you can see our list there. CAL FIRE was one of those things that was brought up. It's like, well, yeah, it makes sense to have CAL FIRE on there because they're so eminent in all of what happens as far as fire. Then someone else brought up, well, really it should come from groups that are in Solano County making those decisions and those votes, and that CAL FIRE would be a super important advisory member. And then other ones are UC Extension, Forest Service, Yochidiki of the Winton Nation on there as well as advisors.
I was just assuming that Solano RCD would be a voting member, especially if we're talking about getting funding. RCDs are very good at that.
Okay. Yeah, basically we didn't quite finish. So some of the list at advisory is ones that we didn't get to as well. So I must claim that as well. So I was sure about these. We didn't discuss it yet. So
Thank you, Chris.
Yep.
I'm going to jump on to Rochelle.
Yes, and a member of our group is going to report out for us. So Alex, if you'll take it away.
Sure. And I'll make this, pretty succinct because I think we mirrored a lot of what was discussed. I think we recommended maybe one rep for things like the fire districts, the city public works or parks. Didn't get too much in the weeds, but that was sort of our thought, Solano OES, Solano Resource Management, Fire Safe Council. So I think that was pretty consistent, one for the voluntary disaster relief organizations, maybe one for the NGOs. Again, we didn't get into super weeds of details of that. And then advisory for a lot that I think other groups, the Bureau, Caltrans, Travis Air Force Base, CAL FIRE, those would be non-voting. And even for ourselves, I'm speaking on behalf of the water agency, we would be probably non-voting, but again, if again there's a flood nexus, again, which we are very active in for fuel management, then maybe that would make sense. So that's kind of in a real quick nutshell, I think, where our group was at.
Awesome. Report back, Alex. Karen, how about your group? Who's reporting?
I'll be reporting for my group, and I can go ahead and share very briefly. We spent actually more time talking about some questions within our group rather than spending a lot of time sorting. There were a few points about from a Caltrans representative that they would like to be involved but not a voting member. Solano Land Trust would like to be a voting member, and we definitely thought the Fire Safe Council should be voting. And Solano County Farm Bureau was one that got added, but we had more questions about, how exactly will the eligibility criteria for newer organizations or organizations applying to join be established? Will that criteria be applied to everybody, even in that initial list? And that it would be really important to have an alternate representative designated for each organization. That's it for us.
Great, thank you. And I think Nancy, your group is the final.
Thank you. So Chief Abrzani was going to report for our group.
Yeah, you can share the screen. We didn't make it too far. We got in the weeds quite quickly there, but some of the stuff discussed, right off the bat, we started talking. You can share the screen there, Nancy.
Or Elizabeth, do you have that? Can you share it? There we go. Thanks.
There we go.
Thought mine had worked.
So for the voting side, right off the bat, they were talking about the animal response team, the CART team. They're out in the community quite a bit, going on everyone's properties and helping out where they can, so they know the area. So most of the community members agree that should be voting. Same with the local fire safe councils, and part of the safe council. Some of the people thought it'd be better that they would get a higher vote just because they're part of the council and the membership of it. So it's not quite clear on how many points or votes that each of those should get. And then when we got down to the fire departments and chiefs, some of it I spoke up and was discussing on being the community-based, and the city chief representative, Jeff, was talking how each section, so you have a city chief section and district chiefs, and each have a seat at the table, but we all belong to a same group that we can come back to, and if we need to get something further direction from the group. But as far as everybody in the middle, some of it was talked about, a lot of it we just didn't get to, just not nearly enough time for our discussion. For non-voting, the Bureau of Reclamation didn't seem like there was much thought of who that group actually has majority of property or what they can talk about within it for voting reasons. Same with CAL FIRE. Basically, their voting is at the grant level. So if they like what you're going for, they're going to approve the grant or not. Caltrans, excuse me, again, they're a state agency, so it's kind of hard for them to have a vote in the say. And same with city public works, open spaces. We just didn't really get to that part on exactly, because there's different pieces all part of that puzzle of that piece. So never really got too far into it. Not nearly enough time what we'd like.
Well, thank you. Thanks everybody for helping us with that process. Obviously, there's a lot more discussion that needs to happen. And so that's one of the things we learned tonight. So what's going to happen next, and if you want to bring, Karen, you can bring the slides back up, but basically this will go back to the coordinating committee and we'll review it and incorporate that feedback that we received tonight, and then potentially have the next version at the next meeting on November 21st. And if you have more ideas, feel free to email Karen Young, and Elizabeth is going to put Karen's email into the chat. And next, and I think, really the heart of what these meetings are all about is hearing what everybody's doing. So I'm going to pass it over to Nancy to introduce our partner updates and reports.
Thank you, Tracy. So I'm Nancy Nelson with Solano County with the County Administrator's Office, and I'm going to facilitate our partner and activity updates for the evening. And the first person I would like to introduce is Rochelle Sherlock, who is president of the Green Valley Fire Safe Council.
Thank you so much, Nancy. So I gave a big update last time, but I guess what I want to do is just tell you that last time we did I was sharing that we were working on the free green waste events. We concluded all 3 free green waste events, wildly successful, packed those bins. And it was really important. And on the one day for the 9/11 weekend of service, we partnered with CVNL and did some property, and I shared some of that. But what I really wanted to speak to is the fact that we were planning a wildfire safety expo. We wanted to have it on October 15th, but it was overlapping with a lot of other events with our partner agencies. So we've moved this to April 15th, and it's a wildfire safety expo. We really want as many vendors and partners as possible, all the fire protection districts, the fire departments, county public works, Solano OES, all of you, because it's really an opportunity to engage people to come out, gather resource, have a deeper understanding about what they can do for both not wildfire preparedness, defensible space home hardening, but also around fire safety within our homes too. So we wanted to be very interactive. We actually already have some exciting things that were in the works, like fire extinguisher demonstrations. And I just have to give a big shout out to Sassoon Fire Department, because they just did one on Saturday. I followed them on social media and the images were incredible. They did some fire extinguisher demonstrations. So at their fire open house. Anyway, just please reach out to me, be part of this, and we will begin advertising and really pushing this hard towards the end of this year and the beginning of next, so that we get a really good group out there. And that's all I have right now.
Thank you, Rochelle. And next, I'd like to introduce Dave Stevens, who is president of the Pleasants Valley Fire Safe Council.
Good evening, everyone. David Stevens, Pleasant Valley Fire Safe Council. The items that I wanted to share with you is we are getting ready to apply for the California Fire Safe Council Community Fire Safe Capacity Building Grant. And we're pretty excited about that. And Solano County is specifically one of the top priority counties to receive this type of grant specifically. And I can only guess that it's because of our recent fire history. And then recently we had a general membership meeting, and for the first time, we had an open forum discussion where we didn't have a guest speaker that occupied a tremendous portion of the evening. And we just opened the floor to our membership and listened to our membership and what ideas our membership had, or just discussions that they carried with them. And one of the biggest things that our membership brought is they miss fire departments coming around and doing assessments of their properties and doing education in the community. So that was a big piece that kept coming up over and over again in our meeting, is that the community wants to see education and enforcement actions taking place in the community, and repeatedly this came up. So I was surprising feedback to some degree, but very much wanted as well. And then we are also pursuing becoming a 501c3 organization. So that's all I have at this time.
Thank you, David. So next, I'd like to introduce our manager of our Solano County Office of Emergency Services, Don Ryan.
Okay, quick updates. The Community Wildfire Protection Plan, as I spoke about earlier, our first large meeting is this Thursday with the cities and county agencies, I guess getting a feel for what the vendor is going to do for this particular project. Again, it's 3 large meetings. The first one will be about an hour and a half, I think. The next one will be all day, and that's when the vendor will probably start looking at give us the proposed projects. And then a third meeting will finalize that list of projects. So a lot coming in the future, and the community, hence the title, will have an opportunity to comment on this plan. And obviously I'll bring it to the Fire Safe Councils, and hopefully the Solano County Fire Safe Council will be established by that time. And then we'll be probably in front of the Board of Supervisors in June of 2023 to get the plan adopted and finalized for the county. Emergency evacuation planning. I wish I had more to talk on that, but unfortunately our GIS database with all the street center lines does not necessarily match what the vendor Zone Haven has. And so we're still going through these individual properties to make sure that a line doesn't go through an individual's house. We want him to evacuate, but the line went through his property, so we didn't get his house. So there's a lot of things we're doing. We're along with the fire agencies, the fire districts, to figure out where they want these zones to be when they do cross multiple properties. So it's very tedious work, and it's taking some time to get that done. With that said, I'm not even going to give you a date of when this will come to the community for review, but it is plugging along slowly due to that database problem. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Don. Yep. And now I'd like to introduce Chief Abruzzini, who will represent the fire protection districts.
Yeah, so thank you for having me tonight. Again, we've done a lot with Don Ryan. He covered a lot of the stuff that kind of happened in the background. Other things the district chiefs and cities and everyone's been working on right now is adopting the California Fire Code. The prevention officer group has been working on the Solano County ordinance that basically takes all the county districts and their areas and brings the code, basically the fire code becomes same across all the districts for any kind of changes that they have. So that's in progress. The bigger one that's been an issue that's been coming to the prevention groups and a lot of the fire districts is the state fire minimum fire safe regs. It's kind of been an uproar. So hopefully Scott Weiss, the CAL FIRE rep, can maybe cover a little bit more for everybody on that. But that's kind of what's going on in the background for the districts right now.
Thank you, Chief. And now I will introduce Captain Weiss with CAL FIRE.
Hello, so Scott Weiss. So I just promoted to battalion chief, so I'll be the battalion chief over here for the Gordon Valley Spanish Flat. The update for fire activity, not much has been going on, but we are still fully staffed. Just waiting for more rain or possible wind events. For the Solano County, luckily we got Delta Camp still around. They're running short with 2 crews, but they're still doing projects around here. main goal is thinning and fuel breaks. That's all I got.
Thank you very much. Well, that concludes our updates and reports. So at this time, I'd like to turn it over to Karen Young.
Right. There we go. Thank you, Nancy, for that roundup. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and provide a very brief update on funding, both the status of current funding for the Countywide Fire Safe Council and future funding opportunities that might get pursued. So the current funding for the Solano Fire Safe Council is coming from a CAL FIRE wildfire prevention grant that came into Solano County. It's running from 2021 through 2024. So we've got some time left on this one, and that's held by the county. The Solano RCD is a subcontractor on that one. But we're looking at a number of upcoming fire grant opportunities and having conversations with all of the various folks within the coordinating committee about interest in applying for these. And I've noted on the bottom here that if any of you are interested in collaborating on grants, the grants are not everyone's favorite thing, but there are some people that really love them. If you're one of those people, please reach out to us. We are hoping that this Solano Fire Safe Council Forum provides an opportunity for increased collaboration within the county on grants and bringing funding into the county. So a few of the ones that we are eyeing, two of them are from CAL FIRE, and we expect them to open up soon. The first one, wildfire prevention grant, funds primarily fuel reduction projects, education, and planning. That's the same type of grant that is funding this work currently. So there are a number of conversations being conducted throughout the county about possible projects. If you've got something that you'd like to suggest, or if you'd like to be involved with that, please reach out. I'll put you in touch with the relevant people. CAL FIRE also will be opening up a forest health grant early next year that can fund forest health, climate resilience, and larger landscape projects. I haven't heard conversations within the county about that one yet, but there might be something coming out. Other ones that came out from other places, the coalitions and collaboratives out of Colorado, lots of CO there, has their Action, Implementation, and Mitigation Program grant open. That's only open through the end of this month. It funds mitigation work and a lot of capacity building. So if anybody is interested in that, the RCD is open to fielding requests for collaboration and shuttling them in the appropriate direction. And the California Fire Safe Council grant, noted at the bottom here, is their Community Fire Safe Capacity Building Grant Program. That was one that David Stevens mentioned as well. That one we're really excited about because it's funding some of the startup costs for new fire safe councils and for emerging fire safe councils. And so we're hopeful to see some applications from the county for that one. If you know of some funding opportunity that the members or the prospective members of the Solano Fire Safe Council should be paying attention to, if there is something that you think an entity within the county should apply for, please send it along. I'll be happy to include it in future updates or send it along to the relevant point of contact. And that's it for our grants update. So I'm going to turn it over to Tracy to manage our Q&A component. I'm going to actually stop sharing for now.
Cool. Thanks, Karen and Nancy and all the folks who did their report backs. So we actually made up time and we've got a little over 10 minutes for an open conversation. If y'all have any questions, comments, either you could put them in the chat or raise your hand, and or comments on that discussion earlier about membership, because I think a lot of us thought that we could have talked about that for a while longer. So this would be a good opportunity to share any thoughts, especially after seeing all the different groups reporting, which some of them were pretty similar. So who has something to say? And either raise your hand or put it in the chat. Don't be shy.
I have something, Tracy.
Go ahead, Rochelle.
So, and this comes back to the membership, whether they'd be voting or non-voting. And it was interesting to hear everybody's conversations, and I don't think a lot of it overlapped. The one where I had a big question mark was just really related to the idea that large landowners should all be voting members. And the only reason why that kind of caught my attention in a unique way is that one, it's the residents are often impacted that may not have large pieces of property, but they're being impacted by the property that's around them. And so I just, you know, in that, I'm not really sure what the underlying assumptions were for that, but I just wanted to raise that up around power, wealth, land mass, and voting rights, because right now with the Green Valley Fire Safe Council and the Pleasance Valley Fire Safe Council and all their little groups, because they have several district leads, area leads, you know, some of them have property, but a lot of them are smaller, you know, they have property, a quarter acre, not these. So I just think there's just something there that I just wanted to see what the assumption was behind that.
Thank you. I think it was mentioned in our group, part of that assumption was larger landholders to implement maybe some larger projects. At least that was the conversation we talked about with Solano Water and the land trust.
Yeah, and actually in our group, it wasn't necessarily giant land holders, it was land managers, like land trust. You know, they've got 40,000 acres, but they don't own it, they just manage it.
Okay, yeah.
Thanks for that distinction, Tanya. And I see Jonathan put in the chat that the Farm Bureau would be an excellent member, and Karen mentioned that their group suggested the Farm Bureau as well. And I think that goes back to Rose, your question about our group and the California Association of Family Farmers. I think we were just kind of getting into that discussion, talking about who would represent farmers, which is why we hadn't decided. Who else has thoughts, comments, questions?
Hi, Tracy, it is Gary. Could you give us a summary of what the next steps are now for determining the membership and voting rights?
So it will go back to the coordinating committee that meets weekly, and that's the group that includes the local fire safe councils, both county OAS and the CAO's office and the RCD. And I think that group will then look at this and decide, okay, do we need to make another proposal and bring it back out to this group, or do we do something else? So it's a pretty open and fluid process. And,
Okay,
and
so
put in the chat, if you've got thoughts, definitely reach out to Karen.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And we do have reps from Pleasant Valley that'll be at that meeting. Any impressions from that conversation that anybody else wants to share, like Rochelle shared with us? Well, we've just
I have a suggestion.
Go
This is
ahead,
John Hammond. I think that more, I don't know about, you know, votes for individual large land managers or land owners, but I do think that more citizen participation, voting participation should be encouraged. It's right now it's, you know, 90% government agencies of various kinds, but it's the people that are affected in the end, obviously. The other thing I would like to comment on, just a general comment, is that I think there should be some recognition that there's a lot of people who have decided that they're not evacuating. There's really a lot of people who have decided that they will, you know, be taking care of their own property and are making preparations to do that. And I think there needs to be some kind of special recognition, you know, advice from fire departments. I don't know what, but there needs to be something, some kind of recognition of that and figuring out how to work with those folks.
Thank you. Chris, you were about to say something?
Yeah, I'm heartened by the fact that people got on and really got into it. It hurt my soul a little bit that we couldn't keep talking because the conversation, well, people started to get more comfortable, started to share a little bit more, kind of understand the context a little bit more. But there are a lot of different ways to do all these things, but there was quite a bit of overlap, which was pretty neat to see. And a few times I was like, oh, I hadn't thought about that. That's an interesting concept. So I think everyone is taking this seriously and looking at how we can create a representative group. So thank you.
Thank you. Other thoughts, comments? Otherwise, we can definitely wrap up early tonight. I'm sure nobody would mind getting a few minutes back in their evening. And Pleasance Valley Fire Safe Council, take note, Jonathan is interested in joining you, so you can get his contact information from Elizabeth from the registration. Great. Well, if there's nothing else, then I'll pass it back to you, Chris, to wrap us up.
Oops. Okay, there I am. Excellent. Well, again, thanks a lot. I kind of already started that. Just thanking everyone for coming and being part of this. The whole thing is going to take a group effort, and that's the only way it's really going to be a solid effort. The next meeting is Monday, November 21st, 6 p.m. to 7:30 or 7:20, if we can help it. Actually, there's a poll right now that Elizabeth is going to put out. It's going to show up. If you could just take a second to do a quick vote. We're trying to get an idea about how we want to continue these meetings and what form. So if you could just vote on that, that'd be awesome. Recording and slides will be posted of this meeting at solonorcd.org. It's under the news section of our website. And also, if you have any questions or comments, contact Karen Young at karen.young@solonorcd.org and Solano OES at solanocounty.com, our partners on a lot of this work. Anyway, thank you very much. And I'm going to wait just a second. I think we're supposed to get that posted here because I'm curious about the results as well. Okay, we've got most people that participate.
Can you see it? Can you see it, Chris? We do have 100% response.
Oh, we do. It shows 100% answered. Awesome. So okay, so a top choice for an in-person location, 21% for Vacaville, 14 for Fairfield, and 11 for Dixon. Dixon showing pretty well in this poll, if I'm honest. Okay, well that's great.
I wasn't able to vote on the poll, just as an aside. It wouldn't let me. I'm just all the progression. So I don't know if it's because I checked in early or not, but
because you're a co-host. None of
okay.
the co-hosts could vote.
Okay, so that would have been fair. So that's 5 for Fairfield.
Yes. Yes.
That would have been 1 more for Dixon.
Probably 3 more for Dixon.
Exactly. And yeah, some are
1 more for Vacaville, it looks like.
So now we're even. Okay. Now it's serious. And we also have I'll be on Zoom regardless is half. So it does seem like there's quite a few of us that like the Zoom option. So there it is. And thank you so much again for your participation in this this evening, but especially this and this poll. I really appreciate it. Oh, those are coming in still. Okay.
So
this is why you end voting, right? This is why you end voting. All right. Thank you, everyone. We really appreciate it. And we'll see you next time. I'll see some of you sooner than that.
Sounds good. Thank you, Chris.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Have a good evening.
Bye-bye.
Thanks all.
Thank you.